Alright, hello there everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everybody's excited for Thanksgiving. I see your message there, Kieran. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well as well. Oh yeah, where are my notes? Can't do that without this. Where is my list of notes? Oh, here it is. There we go. Our game list starts, innocently enough, with NFL Blitz 2002. So let's grab out a sports ball. What else? Yeah, I have to fix the. I have to get on the music situation for YouTube because actually, come to think of it, you know, maybe I can just use the same music as before. Well, no, because then that wouldn't be fair. I don't know. I'll figure it out. For now, however. Let's grab us a camera. That's probably good enough. It's the first game. So, NFL Blitz 2002. This game leaves much to be desired as a football game, and honestly, I don't know why people try to play sports games on handheld anyway, unless it's like a very simple format like pinball or something. Trying to have a football game on handheld is, I don't know. But the game suffered from flickering animations, elements that disappear completely when the camera moves. Well, after this, Kieran, is the list of bad DS games. Huh. Boing. Boing, 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 boing. Let's see. The artwork in the game was subpar. The AI was probably some of the stupidest AI. You could run the same offensive play and the same defensive play every single time and, you know, succeed. Either stop the offense of your opponent or successfully get touchdowns. Even like on run backs, you could easily get the ball past the 50-yard line consistently. You almost never have to kick a field goal. I'll do the bad Mario games after I'm done with all the handheld lists, which you also provided and asked me to do. So let's make... What? I wanted to make a fireball. Oh well. Oh, and of course, no multiplayer. Now this was the Game Boy Advance age. So they already had like link cables and stuff to play multiplayer with other games, so there was no excuse. Maybe they just knew how bad the game was and they knew no one would want to play it two-player. Alright, next game on the list. March of the Penguins. Oh boy, okay. So we're going to break out all the chili stuff here. Guess that's some ice. Freezing rain cloud, snow globe. Ice bomb, or freeze bomb as the game calls it. Now let's see. Do we have anything that's bird-like enough to act as a penguin? Yeah, all the different types of animals they put in here. They didn't put any penguins or any sort of birds, really. The only birds you can get is the birds that fly out of this thing. Right here. Use Russian nesting doll, since it's cold up in Russia. At least part of the year. Now, to be fair, this was a good movie. I've watched it a couple times. I went and saw it in the theater with my sister way back when. And I also watched it with my wife when we were dating. There we go. Anastasia is from Russia. Indeed. So let's talk about this March of the Penguins game. Half the levels in the game are mazes, and half the levels are sort of this Lemmings style, except not as well done as Lemmings, sort of puzzle, where you have to guide the penguins towards the goal by using objects and things like that to help them stay away from pitfalls and falling in the water and things like that. So here's the thing about this game. The presentation was extremely generic. The graphics were not all that good. The audio was boring. But as for the gameplay itself, it was completely polarized. The maze levels were way super easy. The Lemmings style puzzle levels were way too hard. Number one, you have a time limit. And if you have a penguin fall in the water near the end, well, okay, so first let me explain. If you have a penguin that falls off the map or falls in a pit or something like that, you don't automatically fail. They just reappear at the beginning and they have to waddle their way back towards the goal again, and you have to make sure they don't fall in a pit. But the thing is, if you have a penguin fall in the water fairly close to the end, it's unlikely they're going to have enough time to get to the end a second time. So the timer in the game is way too punishing. And a game like this would be mostly geared towards kids anyway, you know, because of its cutesy nature and its puzzles, you know, things like that. But those Lemmings style levels are like way too punishing for kids. So I can't imagine many kids enjoying this. And adding to this is the simple fact that in puzzle games like this, and in this genre, you usually have like a whole lot of puzzles, you know? But this entire game is only 12 levels. 6 puzzle levels, 6 mazes. And that's it. It's kind of pathetic. Where's my cloud at? Oh. 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 So for a puzzle game, that was not acceptable. 12... I mean, think about it. Could you imagine if Tetris only had 12 levels in it? You'd ask for your money back. Next game on the list. Defender. Oh. Where is it? There we go. So let's find ourselves a nice nice pixels to represent the fact, yeah, it's poor looking. Sorry. And yeah, where's my laser? There we go. So let's talk about Defender. Now, the old ancient style like Atari and arcade game was okay, but it did not translate well to the Game Boy Advance because they tried to copy like Defender's style of gameplay, and they tried to like more or less reinvent the wheel, and it didn't work out well because while they copied like Defender's style and gameplay and mechanics, they did absolutely nothing to improve on it, which is a mistake if you're going to have a successful reboot like this. And honestly, the graphics weren't that much of an update either. They're certainly not on... Yes, Karen, I was intending to mention DS is next. I covered that already when you asked me about the Mario game list. Anyway, like even like the graphics are not on Game Boy Advance's standard. Because you gotta remember, this is the system that succeeded the Game Boy Color. And this is the early 2000s. By then we had PlayStation 2 and Xbox and GameCube. So the sound and graphics were very unimpressive for this game. And as I said, the gameplay was just repetitive. The backgrounds are repetitive. They almost just took probably the original ROM of Defender, retooled it just a teeny weeny bit, and slapped it on a Game Boy Advance cartridge. They did almost nothing to improve anything that was charming about the original. So, I mean, could you imagine if, like, they took a classic Atari game like, and we covered this already, they tried to, and yeah, you know what? Even if they did, there's no guarantee it would have been a success, because we saw when they tried to make Space Invaders into a 3D game, how badly that worked out. But could you imagine if they took a classic arcade game from the 80s like Donkey Kong and slapped it on the 3DS, but had virtually no graphical enhancement? Now, it's one thing if you willingly just buy the original arcade Donkey Kong from the Nintendo store for however much it would cost. But if they re-release a game and charge money for it like that, that's stupid, and that's what happened here. So, yeah. See if I can get it to go through the word Defender. There we go. Uh-oh. Honestly, the game probably would have been more successful if they had just taken the original Defender and slapped it on a Game Boy Advance cartridge with no gameplay improvements and just marketed it as that and sold it for a highly discounted price. Like, look, play the original Defender on your Game Boy Advance, only $5 or $10 or whatever it would be. Then I think people wouldn't have minded as much, but what we ended up getting on the Game Boy Advance for Defender was beyond disappointing. So, next game. Yuyu Hakusho Ghost Files Spirit Detective. If I can find it. There we are. Alright. Let's get ourselves... Yeah, we want the 3 sleepers. Where y'all at? There we go. And, so the problem with Yu Yu Hakusho Ghost Files Spirit Detective... Excuse me. You spend a whole lot of the game running around. Like, just going from place to place... and go here, do this. Go here, get that. Sorry. For a second, I thought I was bleeding. I don't know why. But, let's see. How do we want to, yeah, here. These little walking robots. That's perfect. Ooh, and do we have anything that looks like a compass? Because this game provides you with a compass. Now, on, a globe. That's close enough. Now, Yu Yu Hakusho, if you would like to get on the... Thank you. Now, Yu Yu Hakusho is an awesome anime. I've seen a few episodes of it. Never saw it from the beginning, unfortunately, like a lot of animes that I think are cool. But, okay, Karen, I'll mention that. So here we go. We've got our 3 sleeping wooden idols to represent boring gameplay that puts everyone to sleep. Now, the only good thing that I was able to see about this game in the reviews was the story. It has a really good story. But that alone cannot keep a game from being a stinking, pile of vomit. So, very drab background design, just plain flat textures that never seem to move or have any sort of pop that makes you feel like you're actually running through an environment. As I said, the game is spent running around, but here's the thing about the compass. The compass gets you exactly from where you are to where you need to go. Now, why is that a problem? Well, it's like a double-edged sword. Number one, it trivializes the gameplay experience because it literally tells you exactly where you need to go. But on the other hand, you need the compass because without it, there's a lot of excessive exploration that you would be doing if you didn't have it. A lot of dead ends and places that go nowhere and running around trying to find things. It would be excessively tedious. So the problem is there's no balance. Like a properly balanced game should have a balance between exploration and achievement. This game fails on both fronts. The compass just makes it way too easy, and if you ignore the compass, you just won't find your way around. Or you will, but it'll take 100 years. Any other notes? Oh, yeah, and what would a Yu Yu Hakusho game be without some combat, of course, but the combat mechanics are extremely unfun. Alright, Mr. Robot, start walking. Oops. Oh well. Oh, what a bummer. And when I was looking for the cover art, there's a lot of Yu Yu Hakusho games. Hopefully there's at least a few good ones out there, but this one on Game Boy Advance was not. But if you're a person who's really into visual novels and don't care all that much about gameplay mechanics or combat, then who knows, maybe the Yu Yu Hakusho game on Game Boy Advance is your thing. For now, let's move on. Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu. So, this is a fighting game, so let's pull out our fighting game, not you. Our fighting game roster. There we go. So, Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu, if I recall correctly, from what I read, there's only 15 characters available. Which, for a fighting game, that came out in the early 2000s when the popularity of Dragon Ball Z was like arguably at its peak in America is pathetic. I mean, GT had already finished in Japan by this point. So there was no reason not to have that many characters. Or there was no reason to not have way more characters, I should say. Playable characters. Here we go. The only characters that are playable in the game. Goku, Adult Gohan, also as Great Saiyaman, Piccolo Krillin, Android 18, Future Trunks, Vegeta, Raditz, Nappa, Frieza, Android 16, Majin Buu and Super Buu, Imperfect Cell and Perfect Cell, as one character, of course, Gotenks, and Broly. That's right. No Master Roshi, no Kid Gohan, okay, no Yamcha, no Tien, no Chaozu, no Yajirobe, nothing. Just... Now, some people might say, but no one cares about those characters. Well, that doesn't really matter. You still want to be able to play as everybody. I mean, heck, who's the other guy? They don't even have a, can't think of the name. I'm blanking. Oh, Lord, forgive me. Bear with me. I can't remember right now. Yeah, for some stupid reason, though, like, why the heck is Android 16 in the game, but not Android 17? Android 18 and 16 are in the game, but not Android 17. Why? I mean, that alone would make me not buy the game. Android 17 is cool. Yes, Karen. I'll mention that too.
Oh boy.
Alright, so aside from the limited roster, limited and disappointing roster, excuse me, poorly executed fight mechanics, terrible. Poor balancing, a lot of the combos don't do anywhere near as much damage as you would expect, and comparable damage to like just plain punch and kick. There's screen flickering and screen tearing, gotta have that. And apparently, any of the air battles are button mashing trash. Now, air battles are one of the staples of Dragon Ball Z, and you know, anime franchises that are similar to them. And so apparently, you do this odd button combination to instigate an air battle, but your opponent has the choice whether to engage you or just wait for you to come down. So, that was a goof. But even when you have an air battle, it's basically who clicks the button faster, you or the computer, in order to win the flurry punch battle in the air. And that's all it is. Now, I've seen some of the games where it's almost a quick time event where you win those battles by hitting the right buttons at the right time. That's fine too. It would have been an improvement over this, even though I'm not really a fan of QuickTime events, but it would have been better than just a plain button masher. At least then, if you did a QuickTime event, you felt like you achieved something. And let's see. Oh, yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, and stiff animation. What would a bad fighting game be without stiff animation? Here, let's set this greedy businessman on fire. All right. Excuse me, I got a little scratchy throat today. Next one, Harlem Globetrotters World Tour. Now, who doesn't love the Harlem Globetrotters? Let's get ourselves a sports ball and a flaming globe. And what else? Some shades, because the Harlem Globetrotters are so cool. Alright, I think that's enough for that. Let's take a look here. Decent cover art. It's a Harlem Globetrotter jersey with a picture of their signature red, white, and blue Harlem Globetrotter ball. You might expect this game to be decent, but here's the thing. This game does absolutely nothing to capture the charm and essence of what makes the Harlem Globetrotters so enjoyable and such a phenomenon. Okay? There's virtually no humor in the game at all, except from a couple like kind of cheap little, not that the moves are cheap, like when the Harlem Globetrotters do them, it's humorous. But in the game, they kind of shortchanged the players. Like the only like humorous things are like the occasional back pass that the Harlem Globetrotters do, or they might punt the basketball into the basket instead of shoot it. That's it. There's none of like the hijinks that you'd expect on the court with any of the flair or the special effects or any of the goofing on the refs or goofing on the other teams. None of that. It's just a shameless like NBA Jam clone with a Harlem Globetrotters coat of paint on it. And their signature opponents, anyone who knows anything about the Harlem Globetrotters know that their arch nemeses are the Washington Generals. And despite the fact that it's a world tour and they go all over the place playing against teams all over the planet, the Washington Generals are not in the game. I wonder whose decision that was, because it was not a smart one. Now, in addition to that, the order in which you play the teams is randomized, much like playing Street Fighter when you fight opponents in a random order. Now, because of that, there's no difficulty curve. But Steven, wouldn't that make Street Fighter a bad game for the same reason? No, and I'll tell you why. You can set the difficulty of Street Fighter in the menu. I don't know of any difficulty setting in this game. So there's no gradual increases of difficulty as you get further along the list of teams that you're playing. They're all the same difficulty. And different players in the game have different stats, just like NBA Jam, of how well they, dribble, shoot, pass, three-pointers, that kind of thing. But the stats in the game are largely meaningless. Like, they didn't really take the time to make the stats matter. So that can be aggravating for some people who are trying to, pick the best characters when it really, all you really need to do is pick your favorites, because other than that, they play all the same anyway. Adding to all of this is the fact that the basketball mechanics themselves were coded poorly. So, let's just forget that this game ever existed and hope that when the pandemic is over, the Harlem Globetrotters can get back to business as usual, entertaining crowds and putting the Washington Generals in their place. I know Sweet George Brown goes something like that. Next game. Oh, Legends of Wrestling 2. Because, let's see. Legends of Wrestling 2. Came out 2002. Legends of Wrestling. When did the first one come out? 2001. So naturally, there was a whole new list of legends that needed to be included 1 year later. So this is a wrestling game. So let's get our beefcake up here, the beefcake statue, and the protein powder. And let's see, wrestlers always have really, well, most of the wrestlers have really kick-ass intro music. So let's have a nice big old sound system. Anybody see Undertaker's final farewell? He finally permanently retired after Survivor Series. Let me see. Oh yeah, you deserve the Inferno beta disc. There, we'll do that. So, okay. I ain't mad at the cover art. Because by this point, this was like not too long after the acquisition. And so they got people from like all eras, and then from like former WCW stars too. So and of course you got the Hulkster up front there. These are going to take their sweet time to deliver, ain't they? That's okay. Let's talk about the game, because that's what we're all here to talk about, right? So, positively ugly graphics, and I didn't read that. Okay? That's not a note that I just copied or rephrased from what I read in the reviews. The first review I opened for Legends of Wrestling 2 had this big, blown-up screenshot. And the graphics were some of the ugliest I've ever seen in any game. Ever. Ever. Okay? I was like... Oh, sorry. So that's my first note. Positively ugly graphics. There's only a couple of modes in the game and a few match types. So anybody who's looking for a comparable experience to console versions of wrestling games that have a lot of different modes like career, exhibition, this and that, and then all the different types of matches you could have, one-on-one, championship, tag team, Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, Hell in a Cell, steel cage match, tornado tag team, single elimination, hardcore rules, whatever. You're not going to find any of that here. There we go. Yeah, that's all you deserve. So, the wrestling controls themselves are very broken. You have to have that. Apparently, some of the moves you can't cancel out of. Like, if you're doing a button combination, and some of these button combinations for wrestling games, and I've tried to play some of them in the past, and they're not always the most intuitive. And I'm guessing that goes double for this game, or even triple. You do certain button combinations and directional pad combinations to do the various moves, maneuvers, grapples, throws, whatever. Well, sometimes it's easy to just confuse them of what move you want to do, but and in some games, if you start to do the wrong move and you notice, you can cancel out of it and just let go of your opponent. You can't do that in this game, at least with some of the moves. So if you accidentally hit the wrong button combination and you start a move, you have to sit through it, even if it's not the move you wanted to do. Which would bum a lot of wrestling game fans out, I'm sure. Actually, yeah, let's put the protein powder up here. Oh, hey. Oh, subtle. The protein powder container was full of sausages and syringes. It was more appropriate than I thought it was. Alright, next game on the list. Van Helsing. Oh, let me switch my posture a bit. Excuse me. Oh, here we go. Where is the... Okay. That'll work. Sure. Oh, yeah. The game has that, too. Why not? Yeah, and this is horrific looking enough. Let's get all the sort of undeadish, thematic, speared spiders. Yeah, sure. Alright. Let's talk about Van Helsing. From what let me start again. From what I remember, the movie was decent enough. But, from what I read up on this game, the game, at least had something to do with the movie. But, here you go. Just, yeah, I don't care. Okay, so, for one thing, this game is extremely short. You could beat it in about 2 hours. That's pathetic. Even for a handheld game. I mean, look at the original Pokemon Red. How many hours would it take you to just get, you know, all the way through the Pokemon League in the original Pokemon Red? And that was 1998. This was like 2002 or 2003. Really ought to write down these years when I take down these notes. Oh, no, even worse. Woo! 2004. 2004. Hell. I don't even know what Pokemon games were out by then, but the point is, there were handheld games that were a lot longer, so I don't see why there couldn't have been a long adventure in the Van Helsing universe on Game Boy Advance. Maybe because if we did, we'd just have even more to talk about. For example, very plain and static backgrounds, no real interaction. You're walking through like towns and stuff, and you would expect to see like NPCs going about their business. Maybe, you know, a lady sweeping the front mat, you know, someone just randomly waving. You know how game designers try to dress up their environment a little bit, try to make it look alive. You ain't gonna find any of that here. And even the animation on Van Helsing and the enemies is rather poorly done. The audio is terrible. Combat is button mashing trash. Very little variety in the color. Apparently, one reviewer even noted that they think that the designers only used a 16 color palette to draw the game and color the game, which, if that's true, whew. And I agree with this too. I read that the graphics were very smudgy looking. You know, almost sort of like they were cutouts of like poorly done watercolor that weren't colored in properly. What is happening here? Come on. Alright. Well, 20 seconds. So, Van Helsing game on Game Boy Advance. But hey, the upside is you can complete it in 2 hours. So, if you know a buddy that has the game, just play, and you know you got a couple hours to kill. Hey, let me play through that just to say I played through it. And you can join of what I'm sure is leagues of people who played it and can't stand it. There we go. Oh, how appropriate. Just melt. Dissolve. Very nice. Oh, look, the brain. The brain rotted out the zombie's head. How amusing. I like, even though the zombie's dead, you still get the grunt sound effect when you touch the brain. That's hilarious. I'm gonna keep the brain there for a while. So, second to last game on the list. This is another fighting game. But we're going to go a little differently with this one in terms of the robots that we use. There we go. Does everybody remember that fun game from when they were kids, or maybe when their parents were kids? Rock'em Sock'em Robots? I've played Rock'em Sock'em Robots. It's fun. For about 5 minutes, and then, you know, you get bored and decide to go play some video games. There we go. Just pixel it up. Sure. Now, while we're waiting for these other things to get delivered, let's talk about the game. All the opponents in the game are palette swaps of each other. Honestly, I'm not terribly mad at that, but I can see where some people would see it as very cheap design. They didn't spend a lot of the time just making unique opponents for you to fight. They just, okay, here, fight this color guy. Fight the purple robot. Now fight the green robot that looks exactly the same. Now fight the gray robot that looks exactly the same. I can see why people would not be super happy about that. But, you know, some of the games, anyone who's played an RPG is probably used to seeing palette swapped enemies, so as an RPG fan, I'm not too perturbed about that. There we go. Big pile of robots. So, the game has no story. I'm not really sure how you could design a story around Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but just the same, there's no story to be had. Just full-on button-mashing trash. And apparently, to fully finish off a robot opponent requires a very specific combo that requires you to hit the buttons in a very specific way very quickly, which can be very difficult for young gamers to pull off. And the game has a few different modes, but they're all very similar to each other, like we've seen in the past with other bad games. And the animation is poor, which, I mean, if you've ever seen a Rock'em Sock'em Robots game, the only animation is zzz, when the head pops up. So, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of animation you would put in that game. Maybe just well, I think, yeah, one of the moves is to knock their block off. So maybe like the final, when you do the finisher, like you actually uppercut their head off or something. I didn't dig that too deep into it, but suffice to say, the game was poorly received. So let's start the barbecue. Ho! We got another combo. Does anyone have any special memories with Rock'em Sock'em Robots? Tell me in the comments. Why in the world is the bottom left part of the box not burning? How? How? Tell me how! Burn! You're unworthy. Okay, last game on the list. Alrighty, so there's a nice list of notes for this game provided to us by Kieran. Before I get to my own notes, Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis. It was the only Sonic game that was released in North America, which means the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. The game's full of bugs. We covered this when I burned Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis in my Bad Sonic Games video. And let's see. It was released at the same day as Sonic 06, or Sonic the Hedgehog on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. And one of the developers of Sonic Mania made a proof of concept to show how Sega did a poor job of porting it. Terrible. So this was supposed to be Sonic's 15th anniversary, but what else do we want to have here? Yes, noticeable screen slowdown. That's always our favorite. Where's my camera and old-timey radio? So let's talk about why. Let's gotta straighten my teeth. Talk about why this game is terrible. The game has noticeable slowdown, represented by our zombie friend here. The handheld here, just for whatever reason on Game Boy Advance, could not keep up with Sonic's same level of speed and intensity as did the consoles. As such, there's a lot of screen jittering, very poor draw distance. In fact, instead of like the type of generation that you normally see in console games for enemies, where like the enemy would gradually be drawn onto the screen as you approach, or in some cases you have like invisible sections of the screen and then the enemy comes onto the screen and the section you can't see, then you gradually cross into that section, the enemy gradually comes into view. Like, this game might cause enemies to spawn like right in front of you too quickly for you to react, so you end up losing a lot of rings that way because of the game's poor implementation. And screen slowdown, like we talked about. Squish. Very subpar graphics for what you would expect by this point. Low frame rates. The low frame rates really kills the game. The controls are not the best. And they remixed some of the familiar Sonic tunes, but some of them are poorly done. So, Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis, enjoy your second barbecue. before the internet combo. That's Sonic the Hedgehog Genesis. Burnt to a crisp. So that's the list of bad Game Boy Advance games finished. Next is going to be Nintendo DS games. So look forward to that. That's going to be coming on Friday, Black Friday. So once you get home from all of your frantic shopping and crawling over mobs of people to get your Pony Paradise Estates or your authentic Ghostbusters Firehouse, come on back and watch Vast Ice Gaming barbecue some of the worst Nintendo DS games that were ever put out. For now, I want everybody to stay safe out there. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I will see you all in the next one.